Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another international break. But an international break with a difference. This one that carries a huge weight of significance in regards to the future of Celtic Football Club, because we enter week 3 without a permanent manager at Celtic Football Club. So surely during this international break we will find out if there's any indications towards appointing the next permanent manager of the club. It's a huge time to be a Celtic fan. There's going to be news flying and I'm expecting a big week. So let's kick that off, shall we? Let's recap what happened over the weekend. Let's look at the injury crisis that the club are facing, and let's talk about who might be next to sit in the dugout managing this Celtic side. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. I'm still a little bit under the weather, so apologies about that if I'm sounding a wee bit nasally through this video. I'm sure you can understand and forgive me for this occasion. We have a huge amount to go over today, including the recap of yesterday's events as Celtic cut the lead at the top of the league table. We of course have the managerial situation to talk about, amongst another few things, that injury report being one of them. So bear with me, it's a big way to start the week. And it's probably going to be like that throughout the entirety of this international break, which is kind of nice, admittedly. And very quickly, channel members, keep an eye out, because this week we're finally going to start our save on the new Football Manager. That's right, FM26 is here, and we're going to start our Celtic save this week. So if you're a channel member, congrats, I'll see you there. If you're not a channel member and you want to watch along, if you need some bonus content through this international break, then you know what to do. Go down below, use the top line in the description, and I'll see you there as well. So here is a look at the Scottish Premiership table after match day 11 for Celtic. I still can't quite believe that we are second in the league heading into the third international break, behind Hearts of all teams, but it's the cards we've been dealt. We asked for a challenge and we've got one. However, after yesterday's results, the lead at the top of the table has been cut by a couple of points. And if Celtic win their game in hand, against Hearts upon return of the international break, we'll cut that lead at the top of the table to only 4 points. So things certainly looking a little bit better than what they were a couple of weeks ago. Of course, there was a lot of people getting carried away that Hearts were shoo-ins to win the league title, but there's a long way to go. Only 11 games played for Celtic, 12 games played for Hearts. Yeah, this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm feeling kind of good about Celtic at the minute and returning from this international break. Domestically, I think that we'll start to get our act together, especially if we sort the managerial situation. Yeah, it's a long way to go, and I'm certainly not one to throw in the towel about winning the Scottish Premiership. However, I will acknowledge that our return from the international break isn't exactly easy, because when we come back, we go to Paisley, which is going to be difficult. A Saturday late kick-off at St Mirren Park welcomes us back to Scottish Premiership action, and then the following week we need to go to Easter Road, and sandwiched in between that is a trip to Holland, the Coupe, to play Feyenoord. So it's a really tricky first 3 games back for Celtic before playing Dundee and then the all-important fixture against Hearts on the 7th of December. And then when you flip it over to look at Hearts' next 5 games, Aberdeen at Pittodrie, Motherwell at Fir Park, there is some tricky ones in there for them too. So I don't think anybody has it particularly easy coming back from this international break. Celtic know what they need to do. They need to go out domestically and just win. Martin O'Neill has done that so far. And Hearts, well, they need to deal with the pressure of Celtic potentially winning. So yeah, a long way to go. I think that by the 7th of December comes and goes when we play Hearts, we'll have a very different narrative than what was maybe emerging a few weeks ago. But domestically, I'm feeling good right now. And hopefully, if we have a new manager bounce, it'll feel even better. And I feel like we have the right to feel quite confident, because domestically we have just seen a vast improvement, and that continued yesterday with a 4-0 win over Kilmarnock. They didn't lay a glove on us, we were ruthless, we scored 4, conceded 0. Yeah, really domestically we're back to the level we should be playing. 2 big wins against Falkirk and Kilmarnock in the league, a huge win against Rangers in the League Cup. I think we have a right to feel confident heading into that game at St Mirren Park, of course, whilst acknowledging that St Mirren are a very tricky team to beat. So yeah, yesterday players looked back to their best. Celtic still scored goals even through periods of the game where we looked a little bit more stale. We just handled our business, and that's what it's all about. Martin O'Neill said it in his first press conference. The most important thing, and what he prioritised first and foremost, was just winning. And he's done that. So whether Martin O'Neill is here or not, come the next game on the 22nd of November, I think the message is still clear to these players now. It's all about winning. And we'll see if we can continue to do that when we return. However, we do need to caveat that with the negatives, sadly. And we all know that the festive period of fixtures is a really tough one to navigate. And even tougher when you're suffering injury after injury. Yesterday, following the game against Kilmarnock, Martin O'Neill delivered a brutal update on Celtic's injury situation and confirmed that a couple of our players will face surgery through the week. So let's start with Callum Osmond and Alistair Johnston, both suffering hamstring injuries, of course, and they will go under the knife. Martin O'Neill confirmed that after speaking about another player who went down injured, Marcelo Sirachi, who of course went off yesterday in the game with, you guessed it, another hamstring injury. So this is what Martin O'Neill had to say about that. He's done in his hamstring. I don't know what this game's about, really, honestly, but he is going to be out. And the other two lads, Johnston and Osmond, they're getting surgery on Tuesday, and the damning line came following that. They're going to be out for a long time. No luck for Alistair Johnston this season. And of course, we don't have exacts. Martin O'Neill has only said a long time. That could be anything between, 4 weeks and 4 months. We won't know the exact details to the results of the surgery come through. But not good at all. That's Sirachi, Johnston, Osmond out for the foreseeable, who join Cameron Carter-Vickers and Jota, and just this never-ending season of injuries for Celtic doesn't make the return from the international break any easier, especially with our weak squad depth. So as confident as I'm feeling, and as for as good as I think we should be feeling domestically, we do sadly need to caveat that with these sorts of negatives. There is worries. And we'll wait to see what Martin O'Neill follows up with after the international break, if he's here or whoever the new manager is. When it comes to Marcelo Sirachi, we're not going to have a full-on diagnosis about him until that return, I think. So we don't know his length of time yet, but Osmond Johnston out for a long time. So everybody just say a prayer that our players going on international duty come back in one piece. Of course, we've already suffered a couple of injuries on international duty for some players this season. Dyson Maeda suffered one at the last set of international fixtures. I believe Kieran Tierney suffered a minor injury on the first international break with Scotland. Please, please, please say your prayers. Pray to whatever relative saint it is in this situation. Make sure all of their players come back fit. On that note, here is the list of Celtic players heading out on international duty for the next fortnight. We start off with the goalkeepers, Kasper Schmeichel and Vinny Salo, of course. Kieran Tierney and Anthony Ralston head out for the Scottish national team, and Colby Donovan will join the under-21 setup with the national side. Liam Scales and Johnny Kenny, of course, are being called up to the Irish national team. Of course, Johnny Kenny after his impressive run of form as of late. Austin Trusty has been called up to the American national side. Benjamin Nygren for Sweden. Dyson Maeda for Japan. And in Africa, Sebastian Teneke has been called up once again for Tunisia. And Mikel Ange Balikwisha has been called up for the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So, there are a big list of players heading out. Hopefully they all come back fit and firing, and to be honest, hopefully all of them very limited in what they have to do for their national sides this time round. I cannot bear the thought of them coming back injured. Best of luck to them. I wish them the best, but I wish them more than anything their health. So the big topic that will dominate the tabloids, will dominate social media whilst on international break is, of course, who will be next Celtic manager. It is the big talking point, and we need clarity on that over these 2 weeks. Sooner rather than later. Whether that's because O'Neill will be staying, or whether that's because we're appointing someone permanently. It's very important that Celtic get this right, and they get it right quickly, because we can't stall. We can't. As much as I love Martin O'Neill, and as much as I admire what he's done and appreciate this little run that he's had as interim boss, whether it's him or not permanently, we need to know that. We really do. So Martin O'Neill shed some light on it yesterday, following the game against Kilmarnock, of course, when quizzed about the situation. So this is what O'Neill had to say. I'm going to be serious here. I really don't know. It's a young man's game, and I'm almost talking myself out of this here, but it's been tough, you know. All the things that I kind of thought I knew about it have come to sort of fruition, about the strength of the side, or what I thought I saw from a distance, the European football, that type of stuff, where you want to be, and what's happened to the football club, I suppose, since Bayern Munich, you know. It's all of those things, and he went on to reiterate in different points of the interview that he genuinely doesn't know what will happen over the next week or so. He imagines there will be some sort of announcement in the next week, but he just genuinely doesn't know what will happen. I think that Martin O'Neill has made it clear across that interview and just saying that it's a young man's game now, and his interview whilst in Denmark that he didn't want to be around after this weekend. I think he's made it clear that he knows he's not the man for the job, that he knows that Celtic need to go out and make the right appointment and get a young appointment in. So it's a very strange one altogether. I don't think we have any real clarity on the situation. I think the club are guilty of never feeding us information that is reliable or coherent. But Martin O'Neill obviously isn't the guy that will have the answers to those questions. So we just need to wait around and see. I can't help but reiterate my thoughts that I mentioned in yesterday's video. I love Martin O'Neill to absolute death. I appreciate him so much, and if he sticks around for another few weeks following the international break, I think it has to be for the right reasons. Those reasons being that the appointment Celtic want to make can't be here instantly. And I think there's a couple of guys that we know that are like that we might need to wait on. I think that's the only justification you can make for keeping on Martin, because we need to move on. We need to move forward with the future of the football club. So as much as I appreciate him and love him, you know, this is a decision that Celtic need to think about very seriously and very honestly, rather than just kind of using sentimentality as an excuse for things. So I've been very clear in my thoughts commentating on the club, and we'll wait and see what happens. But on that note, we should probably talk about some of those managers that have been linked with the job and the latest on them. So we'll start with Knutsen, and I want to be very quick about things, so we're going to rattle through the latest stories as quick as possible. Now, his exit from Bodo looks not guaranteed, but sort of inevitable. I think the way that he's talking and the way that things are being made out in the Norwegian media is it looks like he is set to leave. But he has reiterated that that isn't part of his plans. Now, this was his latest comments to Avisa Nordland, a publication in Norway, saying, we'll see if we can get things moving a bit. I don't really have the energy to talk about the situation right now. I think we've had 5 matches in 13 days, so there hasn't been much time for contract matters, but we're in control. I don't have any plans to leave Bodo right now, but I hope that they don't throw me out either. We have to find the right balance, but I think we'll get it settled quite soon. So absolutely no guarantees in what he's saying there. No guarantees that he's staying, no guarantees that he's leaving either. It's all that kind of very general media talk, which indicates that nobody really knows what's going on. But there was a point whilst I was in Denmark that it emerged that, you know, he was the favourite for the job and that he's certainly going to leave Bodo. Nobody bar him will know where his heart lies and where his next decision comes. So whether he's the next Celtic manager or not, I think it's still a really tough one to nail down. Point that I would raise with it is I'm not getting my hopes up, because as much as I think he would be number one for me and the guy that if available is the no-brainer option, I just don't want to get my hopes up that it will happen. So that seems to be Knutsen's situation right now. He's not saying he wants to leave Bodo. The contract talks just haven't went any further. So it's all very up in the air with him right now, still leading the way according to some bookies. Now, another favourite in the eyes of the bookies with circumstances that have changed dramatically in the past 24 hours is, of course, Wilfried Nancy. Now, we've spoke about Wilfried Nancy quite a lot on this channel recently. I've also made it clear that I'm very much happy with the potential appointment of Wilfried Nancy. I think he's somebody that really gets me interested. His situation has changed wildly because last night his side Columbus Crew were eliminated from the MLS playoffs. They were eliminated in dramatic fashion in a game-free tie against FC Cincinnati. An 86th minute winner sent Columbus Crew home, and now his season is over. So a season that could have went all the way to December 6th if making it to the MLS Cup final has now been cut short with a dramatic exit in the MLS playoffs. So his situation has changed. He is probably now in a situation where he would happily talk to other clubs if he feels he's done all he can at Columbus Crew. He did say that at the start of the season. I think it was the quote that I was reading was from the start of the campaign where he was saying, just have to wait and see. But if there's options, there's options. Yeah, his name is of course doing the rounds, and he still leads the way in the eyes of most bookies. So we'll see where that goes over these next few days when he speaks to the media. He didn't comment last night after the game about the Celtic links, but he might in the coming week. And finally, we have to talk about a man that I'd only heard of this weekend, Brian Barry Murphy, the current Cardiff City manager, who over the weekend was linked with the Celtic job. However, it has now emerged that he will not be an option for Celtic and hasn't been contacted by the club at all. So if you've seen his name doing the rounds over the weekends, I think it's one that you can put to the side. It's one that I put to the side very quickly, and that wasn't out of disrespect for him or his credentials and as a potential Celtic manager. I just thought that it made no sense, to be quite honest. Current Cardiff City manager in League One, not been there very long. He's been linked with the Middlesbrough job as well in the Championship following the departure of Rob Edwards. But Celtic have made no contact, despite what some reports said over the weekend. So, Brian Barry Murphy, we hardly knew you, and I don't think it's one to read into too much right now. Or at all. So here's a quick recap on the bookies odds right now, and can I just quickly mention the bookies odds don't mean much at all. Look, the bookies odds are just a slight indication of the names you could expect to be in the frame. That's all. I know some people get wound up when I use the bookies odds, but you don't really have much else to go off apart from tabloids saying they've heard this or heard that. It's just as reliable as bookies odds. This is just an indication of some of the names around the top. Wilfred Nancy and Knutsen, as I said, they lead the way right now as favourites. Martin O'Neill is still in there, and Kieran McKenna has dropped to 10-1. The other names that follow on after that seem very distant, to be quite honest. Brian Barry Murphy, who I just mentioned, Ange Postecoglou, who looks to have no sort of connection or link to returning with the club. Efrain Juarez at 20-1. Of course, his name has done a wee bit of the rounds over the past week, but not much in it at all. I think we are seriously looking at it being one of those top four, and that includes Martin O'Neill, because maybe Celtic do struggle to get any of the other options and go, do you know what, O'Neill to the end of the season it is. So, yeah, I think that's where we stand right now. We'll see what happens over the week, but I can't help but reinforce the point. We need clarity on the situation. Celtic can't stay silent. We need something. Whether you drip feed it to the record or no, I don't know, but we need something. We need indications that we're actually trying to work behind the scenes and get a job done. And then hopefully we have it sorted sooner rather than later. Right, that does it for today, and if you can't tell with my throat and my voice, I need to wrap this one up because it's I'm struggling. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and hopefully we have an update soon. I'll see y'all next time.